We're back to talk about the Magus Arcana. Hello there everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire, running a week behind, but not much that can be done about that except for to move forward and onwards. And onwards we are going to go into the first edition Pathfinder Magus Arcana. Arcana are just this whole suite and array of abilities that you can pick and choose from in order to add on a little bit more nuance, a little bit of depth, and some mechanical benefits onto your character. This can really help to stylize how you are playing your Magus, whether you want to dive more into a melee build, lean more heavily into maximizing your magic effectiveness, or trying to blend the two a little bit. Now, something to note here is that with this guide, it's just that, a guide. None of this is law. None of this is set in stone. All of this is just meant to be here to help you gain a good sense of how to put these characters together, looking at things that can mesh and work together really nicely and synergize really well. But if you find an ability that just really works seamlessly with the overall theme and feel of your character, just something that has that little bit of je ne sais quoi and really just does it for you, then do that. The only wrong way to play any of these games, any of these classes, is to play in a way that's not fun for you. So, fun is always going to trump the mechanics, but I find it's nice to have a little bit of a blend of the two. So, with all that said, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already listed yourself in such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. Now, let's actually start talking about the Arcana you're going to dig into here. So, these kick in at 3rd level, then 6th, 9th, 12th, 15th, and 18th level. These are abilities you select that are supposed to blend your magic and martial prowess together into a lethally seamless thing. And oh man, can they really do that. So, the first one we want to touch on here is something that's just going to be eminently useful for anybody, and that's picking up Familiar. You gain a Familiar using your Magus levels as the Wizard levels, so it progresses at that track. No working at lower levels than an actual full level Wizard would. Picking out something like a Green Sting Scorpion can help boost your initiative score. Now, that's something I'd probably throw up there for any spellcaster that can pick up a Familiar. Going first is going to be massively useful, and anybody with spellcasting, it's going to be doubly so because you can do so much to affect the action economy or really boost the effectiveness of individual actions. So, anything that boosts your initiative is going to be very welcome. Just bear in mind that there are going to be plenty of familiars with other abilities, although this class cannot pick up improved familiar, at least not through Magus Arcana. But then we go on from there, and one that you are really going to want to pick up as soon as you hit 6th level is Enduring Blade. The reason you pick this up at 6th level is because this requires your Magus to be level 6. When using your arcane pool to enchant your weapon, spend another point to make it last 1 minute per Magus level. Now, this isn't something you're going to need to do all the time, but if you're delving into a dungeon on the battlefield, preventing some kind of horrible thing from happening, making sure that you're not having to burn more arcane pool points than necessary to keep your weapon enchanted is going to be useful, although this does make it so you are spending an extra point. But the trade-off there is pretty significant. 1 minute per Magus level is going to be awesome, because even right here, this is 6 minutes worth. Now that may not seem like a long time, but that's many, many, many turns of combat. Next, we have Accurate Strike. Kicking in at 9th level, you have to spend 2 arcane pool points, and that's a precious resource, so that hurts. But this lets you make melee touch attacks until the end of your turn. So no, you're not going to be able to use your attacks of opportunity on this, but Making it so that you're not having to factor in a target's armor when you're striking them is going to be useful. That is a huge benefit. So this is something where you're going to be making use of it on high level targets, high end targets with a significant armor class bonus that is coming from their armor. So creatures in enchanted full plate, wielding heavy shields, things like that. Being able to negate that part of their armor class is going to be huge, particularly since targets that are wearing heavy armor like that typically don't have the best dexterity scores to boost their touch armor class. Next, we have Devoured Blade, coming in at 12th level when you hit your Magus level at 12. When using Arcane Pool to enchant your weapon, spend another point to add Anarchic, Axiomatic, Holy, or Unholy. Your choices here are limited by your alignment, so if you're good aligned, you can't hit your weapon with Unholy. If you're lawfully aligned, you can't go with Anarchic. However, this does do a lot to add in additional damage, so that's another 2d6 points of damage against your targets. And most campaigns, if you're good aligned, it's probably going to be a fair bet that many of your opponents are going to be of an evil alignment of some sort. So you're going to get in a pretty solid additional 2d6 points of damage on top of your weapon damage, your dexterity adding into damage if you've taken the feats for it, and any magic damage you're doing by channeling your spells through your weapon as you strike. So that can really add up pretty dang fast. Next, we have Baneblade. This requires Magus level 15. Spend another arcane pool point to give your weapon the Bane ability. Now, the reason why this is still rated so highly, even though you're having to spend another very precious arcane pool point, is that you can pick the kind of Bane you're throwing at your opponent. So you're not dependent on any foreknowledge, you're just dependent on being able to correctly identify the opponents in front of you. So if it's undead you're facing, you can put the undead Bane ability on it. If it's dragons or draconic creatures, well, now you have an anti-dragon weapon, so on and so forth. Now, I did see some guides, namely RPG Bot, looking at the Magus Arcana. He mentioned something about putting on Baneblade and Devoured Blade on. So if you're fighting an undead opponent, most undead are of an evil alignment. So if you're good aligned, you throw down Holy and then presumably put on the Undead Bane ability. That's an additional 4d6 points of damage right there. You are going to carve through undead if you can do that. Just something to bear in mind with this, in particular with Devoured Blade, is that you can only put one of these abilities on there. So you can't throw on Anarchic and Holy or Axiomatic and Holy. You have to pick one or the other. You can't do both. But if you're chaotic good, well, then you have a choice between Anarchic or Axiomatic, which makes Devoured Blade pretty damn useful. Same goes for any other combination of these that you could possibly throw out there. So you have to pick one or the other, but you could stack Devoured Blade with Baneblade, and that's pretty dang cool already. But we move on from there to Disruptive. This comes in at Magus level 6. You gain Disruptive as a bonus feat to cast defensively, increased by +4 for targets in your threatened area. That's a pretty cool ability. That does a lot to help you make an enemy spellcaster's life total hell. This is great to have. Then we also have Spellbreaker, requires Magus level 9th. Casters that fail to cast defensively provoke attacks of opportunity from you. Given your high dexterity score, if you have, well, the combat reflexes feat, which adds in your dexterity modifier as additional attacks of opportunity, you can really do a lot to punish an enemy spellcaster and any allies that they might have come rushing in to help their friend, their ally, their master, whatever the case is. So you can really do a lot with this, especially with these two in conjunction. Now, as an example of one that's really not all that great, we have Pool Strike. Spend 1 point from Arcane Pool as a standard action to make a melee touch attack as a free action that deals 2d6 elemental damage. You can choose acid, cold, electricity, or fire. This can be used with Spell Strike and can be held for 1 minute before ending it. At 3rd level and every 3 levels thereafter, this deals an additional 1d6 points of damage. So you can already see some of what the issue is here. Although we haven't talked about spells yet, if you pour any time into looking into the Magus on your own, you'll know that spells like Shocking Grasp are a tried and true standby for most builds. It's a very reliable spell. Goes up to 10d6 points of damage. It's electric damage. That's not a very common resistance, at least not in comparison to fire or cold. So it's a pretty good standby to work with. And it already outpaces this, because one, it's costing you a point from your Arcane Pool. The damage is much lower. And really, the only thing that's really nice about this is that it can be used with Spell Strike, and you have some flexibility in the type of damage that you're dealing. But overall, 9 times out of 10, Shocking Grasp is going to work perfectly fine for you. And on the rare occasions where it doesn't, well, you've got better options than using Pool Strike to deal this damage to the target. So overall, this just isn't great. Also, the fact that it's costing you a standard action on top of this, it's just not great. This is a very, very bad ability. Unlike Maximized Magic, cast a spell as if prepared with the Maximized Magic feat without increasing the spell level or casting time. That's huge! That's an incredible ability to have by comparison, and this really does a lot to make your spell casting way more effective, just super effective in fact. And there's plenty of other Magus Arcana to choose from. There's a Haste and Strike, I want to say. Basically, you just throw a haste effect on yourself. And the haste is just an incredible buff. It's an incredible buff for you to have thrown on. And there's plenty more to pick and choose from here. More that lean more heavily into magic and to making your magical abilities that much more effective. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Either way, hit those like or dislike buttons. And remember, if you've made it this far, you might as well go down there and hit the subscribe button and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time. Good gaming to you all, and you all have yourselves a good night.